Hey everybody, it's David Fine from the Retro Wrestling Rewind. Yes, we're back live. Tonight, we are talking Super Brawl 9. Yeah, that's right. And folks, I'm giving the booking sheet back to Tyler Peters. What's he going to book for us next week? You just have to stay tuned as the Retro Wrestling Rewind comes at you live, and it begins now.
38 pounds in the black corner. From St. Louis,
Andre the Giant.
Gonna get his legs in on the bruiser.
Number one, the greatest WWE champion of all time, and in many ways, the man who made the title what it is today, Bruno Sammartino.
his opponent weighing 236 pounds in the white corner. From Van Nuys, California.
Welcome into another edition of the Retro Wrestling Rewind. As always, I'm David Fine, the man to my right. Of course, you can't see him if you're listening to it on audio only, but if you're watching it live on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all those social medias, the great Mike Steyer, and the guy below me in the old, I guess they call it the old Hollywood Squares or the Brady Bunch, Tyler Peters from Nashville, man.
How's it going?
I'm doing good. Super Brawl 9. It came to us live February 21st of 1999, Oakland, California. And we were supposed to have a very special guest on the program who had actually was at the broadcast, but he's under the weather. He will be back with us. He will be coming to us live in a couple of weeks. The great Jim Cooley Crabb. This show, 9 matches, and it kind of pull back the curtain. One of these matches, the great Mike Steyer forgot about. We're not going to tell you which one because it was such an amazing show. I picked this show. Like I said at the beginning, the great Tyler Peters is going to pick next week's show. Before we get started, what was your thoughts, Mike and Tyler, of the show before we get into it?
It wasn't a bad show. I can see where, I'm a WWF guy, and I know that one of the knocks of WCW was that for a while, a lot of the matches were just, I don't say ruined, but interfered with by the NWO group. And this was a card that was just NWO heavy from top to bottom. So I can see where it would be very frustrating for a wrestling fan that, if you didn't really care for the NWO guys, that this could be a tough card to watch because it's like very few of them went without any kind of interference or, somebody jumping in whatsoever.
Yeah. Tyler, what was your thoughts? I know you went back and watched it. To be honest with you, I hadn't seen this show in a long time, but we're good broadcast journalists. We go back and we actually watch the broadcast, unlike some shows who just wing it. We actually go back and watch it. What were your thoughts when you push the old play button on the network and watch Super Brawl 9?
I thought it was a good show. The Chavo Billy Kidman match, I can't wait to talk about that one. Just anything the Cruiserweights did, and a young Rey Mysterio with Conan taking on the Outsiders actually was a fun match. I can't wait. There was a lot of good stuff that I can't wait to talk to you guys about because you always make me look smarter, more intelligent, and it's scary that you're handing me the book for next show. What's wrong with you?
We got a spike in the ratings, according to Nielsen, that time whenever you booked it. Mike, you did a good job, but it was about steady, kind of like a Raw, SmackDown, AEW kind of show. But next week, I cannot wait till we find out what we're going to be looking at. The first match we had on the card, Chris Jericho with Ralphus taking on Perry Saturn. And hey, Mike, you want to talk about this amazing match?
Okay, so this was the first match. Why was
actually no? It was it was not the first. It was not the first match. You were right. The first match had five-time Booker T taking on This guy, they annoyed the crap out of people. But I knew this guy when I was a wrestling ring announcer back in the mid '90s. The Disco Inferno, Glenn Gilbert Eddie. He was annoying as crap, but he was. I mean, he did exactly what he was in the NWO. So I mean, but that's not saying much. I mean, so was Vincent. I mean, I don't think you have much qualifications to be in the NWO. But what were your thoughts on this first match, which was Booker T, Disco Inferno?
Okay, this one I can speak to. I thought it was a fun match. It wasn't. I mean, it was under 10 minutes long. Disco got his things in. You could tell that the crowd really hated him. By the reactions and the back and forth. And of course, you knew that Booker T was going to come on top, but it wasn't a squash by any means, which, probably would have happened pre-NWO times with the good old Disco. But you always knew what you were going to get out of him. Sure, he was super annoying, but the guy could still wrestle. And the right person went over in this one. Booker T ended up winning.
Yeah, I mean, what were your thoughts, Tyler?
Yeah, everything Mike said was great. I loved how Bobby Heenan pointed out that even though he even annoyed them as commentators, being the heel, he could respect how Disco went about joining the NWO. And I found it interesting how Stevie Ray was in the NWO, but yet this created a good match, whether it was confusing the logic behind it. I think Disco did come out better because of Booker T, a lot thanks to his opponent. And Booker T, we were seeing the evolution of what he was going to be with King Booker in the WWE. It was interesting to go back in time and watch these shows. It was something.
You forgot G.I. Bro.
Oh, I did, didn't I, Mike? He reminded me. How could I forget that gimmick? That was classic. One of the greatest gimmicks of all time.
That lasted about 3 weeks, and Booker T was like, "I'm not doing this anymore." G.I. Bro.
Boy, you must have a great memory, because I do not remember G.I. Bro. I mean,
it was him and Major Guns.
Oh, I remember Major Guns.
And
yeah, I did, but
Hugh Morris, humorous, was in it too. And there was another guy. Yeah, it was like this whole army theme, and it's like Booker T's like, no, thank you, I'm not going to do this anymore. And but Tyler's right. It was like the evolution of Booker T, because he's not in the NWO. He's his own person, very similar to what DDP ended up doing. And I think it was great for both of those guys to not be in that faction at all, because my God, did it get all messy by the time it was all said and done. You couldn't keep track of who was in it, but you could keep track who wasn't in it, actually.
Yeah, it was.
That's true. Great point. Yeah.
I mean, what were your thoughts? I mean, I've gotten some feedback from the legend himself, Bill Apter. He was, saying the NWO was a great faction. I mean, what were your thoughts on the NWO? I mean, there was Wolfpack, there was there was a lot of NWOs. There was NWO Black and White, there was NWO Red. I mean, come on. I mean, wasn't there like an NWO like
Blue World Order?
There
Blue
was,
Meanie.
yeah.
That was the best one. I love the Blue Meanie. I met him when we were in New York a couple years ago. Man's the nicest guy in the world, but the Blue World Order was the best. I think it had who did it had Blue Meanie had a bunch of other, I guess I guess, but it just there was which NWO was your best? I know that you like the Blue Order. Tyler, your thoughts?
It's got to go back to Hogan, Hall, and Nash. Just the historic significance of Hogan turning heel. And to me, even Bischoff's admitted he was trying to grow the NWO because of brand splits, before WWE had the draft. And I think it was smart if you could do hindsight 2020 and go back to keep it the 3-man team, but it just grew and grew to where it just got too much and people were getting tired of it. So we had too many factions, like you were talking about, too many spinoffs of the New World Order.
Yeah, it was definitely weird. The next match we had on the card was for the WCW. It was I am just doing really good tonight. It was Chris Jericho taking on Perry Saturn. That's the match that, Mike, he really, really enjoyed. I mean, I don't understand why
I wanted to see Ralphus, but I didn't know it was on there.
I mean, how can you not? I mean, that was the draw right there, Ralphus.
I mean, what were your thoughts on Perry Saturn? I mean, he was a great wrestler, but he's had some rough times. I mean, he is. had some mental issues, I think, and some other issues. I mean, what were your thoughts on Perry Saturn? I mean, we all know that La Champion is amazing, but I mean,
Perry Saturn I thought he was a well-rounded athlete. I loved his finisher. His work with Moppy in the WWF was hilarious. I actually enjoyed that, but it's like when he came in to WWF or WWE, whatever, it was WWF at the time, Vince McMahon didn't know what to do with those guys. And he got as much as he could out of the other guys that came over, but just not Perry Saturn. And Saturn had his own demons to deal with. If you've ever heard him on Steve Austin or Jericho's podcast, he goes into that quite a bit. So he was a bit of a lost soul.
Yeah, I mean, what were your thoughts, Tyler, on Perry Saturn?
A great wrestler, I think, because he was misunderstood. It played into his gimmicks that he betrayed in all these companies. But I thought it was actually a solid match. The stipulation was silly, but just like with Booker T, we could see the early stages of Y2J when he was going to make the big jump to WWE and become an even bigger star. And he was already getting established with WCW. And that's my takeaways, too, from that match.
Yeah, I mean, I think the silliest part was him wearing a dress. I mean, we've talked in the past about wrestlers wearing a dress. You know, Miss Atlanta Lively, and you know, in Starrcade '85. But I mean, did you do your due diligence and do research? I don't know why he was wearing a dress. I mean, this 1999 was such a long time ago. It was the year I was married. It was such a long time ago. And that's the one thing about the network. They have complete shows on some things, some years, then some they have like 1 or 2 episodes, and then you're like, I mean, I guess you have to do some more research on YouTube, which YouTube's a great resource. I mean, did you ever figure out, or did you know why he was why he was in a dress?
I think the commentators like Shivani was saying it was actually even a return match, which, you know, I can't remember. It's not like I knew that only by watching it and hearing the commentators actually explain the story. Now, I will say they did a good job of that, because as weird as the match was, you know, I will say Ralphus was a funny character. Now, did I get tired of him? But Jericho was doing that with Goldberg. I mean, he was really coming to his own with Goldberg. The whole real life heat between those two would have played great on screen, but you know, Bill he took things personally, and you know that's why that didn't work, and he was so over at the time. You know,
what were your thoughts on Gilbert? I mean,
I thought it was hilarious. I thought it was a good. It worked. He was over with the fans. He ended up winning the hardcore title at one point. Mm-hmm. He had the mannerisms down. I'm not gonna lie, he made me laugh, and whenever he came out, I knew it was gonna be fun, and he was probably gonna get clobbered. So, you know, imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, right?
Yeah, I think he still wrestles some a little bit today. I mean, it's just, you know, but I mean, it's Gilbert. I mean, it's sad to say I liked him better than I did Goldberg. He wasn't as annoying. Right. I mean, when a wrestler has an entrance where he has security walk from the dressing room to the ring, I mean, come on, it's just a lot of pop, no circumstance. It was just, I don't know. It is what it is. But our next match was for the WCW Cruiserweight title. It had the champion Billy Kidman taking on Chavo Guerrero Jr. Your thoughts on this match for the Cruiserweight title?
Tyler, go ahead.
I thought it was fun. This is what helped WCW during the Monday Night Wars to me, was bringing the Japanese wrestlers, the ones from Mexico, because American fans got to see that different style, and it really helped like Kidman and other wrestlers be able to compete, take it to another level. And Chavo, you just forget how talented these guys were, and I'm glad they got bigger pushes. And Kidman, they just kept getting better every match. The spot where Kidman took the bump off the guard railing did look bad. I mean, he sold it well, or it really did hurt. That was just a phenomenal match. There was just a lot of great stuff, high flying, where Chavo went over the top ropes. I mean, to think of the athletic ability where his feet didn't even touch that top rope, it was just amazing to me. That's just some of my highlights from that match.
And they didn't get enough time, though. This is like 8:30. The next match was long the tag team title thing. I wish these guys would have gotten more time. But like Tyler said, you know, these are your talented guys. My only problem is with WCW is their ceiling was so low. They could only do so much, which is why a lot of these guys end up going to WWF, and it's not like they were used great there either. But, you know, I think really Rey Mysterio exploded out of this. Billy Kidman had a decent run. Chavo was around forever in various roles after this point. But you got to have a different style, as Tyler said, from, you know, the big muscle-bound guys tossing each other around, taking an hour just to make 5 moves, and these guys would make 5 moves in 10 seconds. So it was fun, and it showed you just what different kinds of wrestling there was, and you know, it gave the smaller guys a little bit of airtime. Yeah, I mean,
This was back in the time when recently they've been making a big deal about, at least in the WWB, about Eddie Guerrero's Rey Mysterio's mask, and you know how they love the mask. The luchadors like to wear the mask. But for a while, he didn't have a mask on, and I think Tony Schiavone said that he's his favorite. He's the handsomest wrestler that he knows, which seems kind of weird. I mean, he wasn't a bad looking guy without a mask on, but I have to think Chavo Guerrero. I mean, this was kind of the start of that whole run for them and the luchadors and the Mexican style wrestling in WCW. I mean, I love high flying. I mean, I just don't like, you know, headlocks and figure fours and whatnot. I love high flying stuff. I mean, you know, kind of like you know, AEW. I mean, they do that a lot. I mean, Darby Allin. I mean, those. What are your thoughts, both of you, on kind of the high fly style versus just like the ground stuff where, you know, a headlock, a figure four leg lock, or you know, whatever. I mean, do you like high flyers or do you like more mat work?
I like both, but again, the ceiling seems lower for the guys who are more athletic. You know, AJ Styles breaks that mold. Of course, you can nitpick and say there's other guys that do too. But at the same time, it seems like the old style guys are the ones that get further because they're the guys with the bigger physiques. They're the ones that get more mic time. I kind of like that mixture of both. Because honestly, I look at it as, I know it's not a true sport. You know what I'm trying to say. It's pro wrestling. But would a great high flyer beat Hulk Hogan? That's the problem that you run into, is that mix of styles doesn't always work out. And sometimes it just, you know, they hit their ceiling, as I said. But I enjoy both styles. I don't know that I really prefer one over the other.
Tyler, what's your thoughts? I mean, high flyers versus the old on the mat wrestling.
I like a good mix, as long as the high flying don't get too much of a spot fest. That's where I kind of draw the line. To me, you've got it. Wrestling's always at its best when it tells a story. That's why, you know, Rey Mysterio can pull that off, and Chris Benoit, Malenko, because they could get technical if they needed to. And even the cruiserweight match, it was high flying. But what I appreciated is they made it more of a match too. They brawled. So that's my thing. I like it all. I like a variety. I just want it to be a good balance. I can take it either way. And Mike brought up a great perspective that not all styles have the chemistry. They can clash, and just like with the Hogan comparison and stuff. But that's me, because I've got a little bit of the old school, but I'm adjusting to what the moves they can do now. So I'm looking at it from both sides of it.
Well, and you also have to have the guys that will put over the smaller guys, which is where Kevin Nash did for Rey Mysterio at times. But some of these big guys just they wouldn't do that at all. There's no chance of a smaller guy ever beating the big guys, so the big guys won't do it. They won't sell out anything for these smaller guys. So that clash of styles can be a problem for, you know, a company. You know, how do you put these things together when both sides, you know, can they get all of their moves in that they want to?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and I agree. And Tyler, I just wanted to not to make you nervous, make you nervous. Six matches until we need to figure out what you got the booking sheet. Do not let the world down You know, I
have no pressure at all.
I have confidence in you. I have confidence in you that you're going to do the right thing and make a good show for next week. But the next match we had on the card was for the vacant WCW World Tag Team Championship match. I mean, what were your thoughts on this match? I mean, it had Hennig and Wyndham versus Benoit and Malenko. I mean,
it was really long.
I mean, it was a 2 out of 3 falls match, of course. I mean,
yeah, but about halfway through, I stopped caring, and I kind of lost track. I'm like, okay, so they have a match prior, and then how do these two factor in? And I just wanted to see Malenko and Benoit wrestle. Hennig, was good, but I think he was a little bit past his prime. Barry Windham, I've always felt that way about him. Early in his career, I thought he was much better, but again, you've got at least Wyndham's a giant. You've got 2 basic cruiserweights in there, but they're the guys who had the most, the better wrestling skills. But of course, I'm not going to downplay Hennig because Hennig is Hennig. But just this match, it just didn't do much for me.
Yeah, I mean, your thoughts, Tyler?
It did go long, and a little confused by the stipulation myself, but I will say 4 great workers, and Benoit and Hennig brought out the aggression in each other. I mean, they were working stiffer, even Malenko with the kicks with Hennig, and man, Hennig, nobody could sell like Mr. Perfect. I mean, with a chop, sure, the sound's great and it does hurt, but the bump he takes on the back just makes it that much better. And Wyndham, you know what? I like the simple move where Malenko was chasing him. He got back in the ring. There was no action, no movement, but just the simple things, the nuances that I find interesting in that kind of match. And I will say this, the finish with the belt was interesting. I actually enjoyed it. Just my opinion, where he choked out Malenko. It was clever, kind of going back to the old school where the heel had to, instead of the boot, he's got the belt. Hey, I'll just take it off my jeans and I'll choke you, if I can't beat you the right way, the fair way.
And I did like that finish, and he hit it very well.
Yeah.
At the end, you couldn't hardly see that belt was in there. So yeah, right. You're right. The nuances were there.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. This match. It was good.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it had a lot of stuff. I agree it was long, but those guys could work. You just miss. I hate the issues Benoit had because you miss watching him compete. Such a talent. It's just a shame going back watching these matches.
Yeah, I mean, this next match we had on the card was a hair versus mask match. The Outsiders taking on Conan and Rey Mysterio.
You knew the outcome of this one. There's no way those fellows were going to lose their hair at all. Although Nash ended up shaving his later in his career. He looked pretty good without that long hair. Tyler talked about this match before. It was fun. Conan brings the power. Mysterio brings the speed around. And I didn't quite get it. Why do you take the mask off of the luchador? I don't care about a maskless Rey. He looked like he was 12 years old, especially because this is like pre-tattooed Rey Mysterio. He's still a great wrestler, mask or no mask, but I felt like you took away Samson's hair, to use that. You took away his power. His power is in the mask, and that's what he's known for in the WWF, switching his masks around, his eye shades and everything like that. And what are you going to do? You're going to take it away for what? I didn't quite get it, but I mean, it was what it was. It was fun. You had the 2 big bullies, tossing around the other guys a little bit, and NWO showing off their stuff, but I didn't like the outcome of it.
I mean, Tyler, what were your thoughts?
Let me just say this, that I need to go back and appreciate Conan's work, because sometimes I forget about that. Going back reviewing these matches, that's what I enjoyed, because the guy can make you look great. He can sell for you. And when he got that hot tag, he was cleaning the house. I mean, give Nash and Hall a lot of credit. And the way Rey was, that springboard spot was awesome, where he used Nash to hit Hall. But I'm with you. I guess Liz just did not want to lose the hair. And Luger had the bicep injury, so I don't know if he was faking that, because remember, he interfered. He got Conan by the legs and drug him out of the ring. So there was some finishes that just because they were different didn't mean they were always good. I mean, going back to the Wyndham finish, I'm with Mike. I wasn't as crazy about this one.
And I forgot the hair was Elizabeth's. I as I remember it, I'm like, oh yeah, it was Elizabeth's hair. It wasn't Nash's or Hall's. And there's no way she's gonna lose that hair.
Well,
no
true.
way.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. It's Miss Elizabeth. Come on.
Yeah. I mean, and it's funny. If you watched AEW this past week, you saw Conan. He was in Vegas with the Inner Circle. He is. I didn't recognize him until someone said, "Hey, it's Conan." I was like, "He's I don't know. He's gotten up in age, and well, not in ring shape anymore." But of course, they got. Of course, they got.
Are any of us?
No,
other than Tyler.
I mean, well,
he's been in the ring.
Yeah, I wish. Yeah.
I mean, did you? I mean, if you haven't seen the bump that Tyler took, I mean, holy moly! I mean, good Lord! I mean, and I bet you can't wait to. The only time I was in the ring was for like 2 seconds in an angle from 1992. I was blowed up. I mean, I was like Brock Lesnar walking to the ring. I mean, I remember seeing Brock Lesnar walking to the ring. That guy was purple. I think that was me. I was huffing and puffing. I don't know how you took that big bump and got up and walked out. I mean, the guy who hit you was he was vicious.
Pretty cool.
So, but yeah, I mean, it's it's Conan. That's all I can say.
And you must have you always get high with him too. That was the thing. If you haven't had a chance, there were some substances that K-Dog was, getting rowdy with. So it was kind of funny. I was laughing about that.
Everything is legal in Vegas. I mean, I'm just saying. I mean, I'm just saying.
There, right?
But you ever notice the expression on Wardlow never changes? He always looks like he's constipated or pissed off. He's like, I mean, I of course that's his gimmick, but it's just funny. Him and Jack Hager kind of like
staring down each other. Yeah.
I mean,
I think we're going to see them wrestle because that looks like that's what that's building to. Or you think, I can't say. I'm not booking the show. So.
No, you're booking this show. I'm not going to sell you off to AEW right now because you're going to book a great show, which we're going to be finding out in a couple of minutes. But the next match we had on the card was for the crowned the world television title, which was currently held by the great Big Papa Pump Scott Steiner. He took on DDP, Diamond Dallas Page. Who would have thought this man, who started out as a manager in the AWA with Pat Tanaka and Paul Diamond, Bad Company, would morph, saving Jake the Snake Roberts' life and Scott Hall's life and a bunch of other people's lives, but becoming world champion of World Championship Wrestling. Would you have thought that when you saw DDP back in the day?
I don't know. I don't know how far back I can remember him wrestling, but he was smooth in this match. He's always very fluid. If you watch any of his matches, they're not helter-skelter. All of his moves seem like they just go as they're supposed to go. Love the Diamond Cutter move. That's, everybody likes Orton stuff, but I'm like, no, it's a Diamond Cutter. You got to take that one. And it was a fun match. And what's coming up later for Diamond Dallas Page and getting the World Championship and his DDP yoga. I swear by it because I've used it before. And this was a good match. People forget how good Steiner was. Obviously, he was so blown up physically, but the guy could still move, doing the Frankensteiner and jumping all around. And you can't do that stuff now if you've seen how he's aged. Not on as much juice as we'll say, but this was a good match. It was 14 minutes long, and two guys that I enjoy watching wrestle.
I mean, Tyler, what were your thoughts on this amazing match for the WCW World Television Championship?
Yeah, it was a really good match. And I love the backstory to this, that Kimberly, that it was Scott's fault. But he did the promos that reminded me of a friend of his that from that whole Midwest area of Rick Rude. I mean, he was saying Kimberly won it. That, to me, reminded me a little bit of the Ravishing one. I like that. and they were classic lines. And, you know, Big Papa Pump, as much as I like the classic Steiner stuff, this was one of my favorites by Scott Steiner. This was him. This was some of his personality, real legit personality. And I love how there just seemed to be this attractive lady that he gets out the end of the ring. And, you know, he talks about, you know, how he's going to steal everybody's women and stuff. It's just great stuff. And, hey, the Buff Bagwell stuff, you know, you say what you want to about Buff, but exposing that turnbuckles was pretty clever. I mean, if you're going to be a heel, then do it right and help Scott Steiner. And that's what got the Steiner recliner. You know, he worked the back, and it was a great match. I was impressed with how good it was.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Steiners could be in the furniture business with a Steiner recliner. That'd just be a great name for a chair, you know. But yeah, I mean, I was never a big Scott Steiner fan. I've never have, but DDP. I mean, back then I was like, I mean, it was okay, but now, I mean, like Mike, you said you swear by DDP yoga. Haven't done it in a while, and I went to an actual in-person DDP yoga class. Boy, that kicked my ass. I mean, I was like, oh my God. And that was the one time that when I met DDP, I almost hit him by accident because I was doing something. I was talking to a wrestler who was checking me in. This guy named David Ali, who wrestles for AEW on their dark matches and some of their TV stuff. And I swing my hands back and just making a gesture, doing something. And you know who was behind me? DDP. I was like, I'm glad I didn't hit him because he would have kicked my ass. I mean, I think the guy's like maybe in his mid 60s, maybe early 60s. I'm not sure exactly what his age is, but he would kick my ass. I mean, that stuff does work. I mean, if you've seen some of the stuff on the internet, it's all true. I mean, these people, I mean, they go on it, they, you know, eat healthy, they do the DDP yoga, and it works. I mean, it helps with everything. I mean, it's great. And I'm going to try to start doing it again, you know, and, you know, get into shape for, maybe my return to professional wrestling as a ring announcer. And then I can get in the ring with Tyler. I mean, you know, when COVID's over, you know, when you get close to each other.
Well, we could do like the referee match and make it more funny because I can't really work either. Like the Hebner or Nick Patrick, we could do an invasion angle work.
See, we're thinking of stuff. But the next match was for the United States Championship. It was the great Scott Hall with Disco Inferno. It's kind of like Jimmy Hart, who comes out for everybody, versus Roddy Piper. He was the U.S. champion.
See, I would have said he's more like Scrappy Doo and that he ruins stuff and no one cares for him.
Well, that's true. You could there's that side of it. Yeah.
I mean, what were your thoughts on Roddy Piper as the U.S. champion? I mean, he wasn't in his prime. I mean, he wasn't a young Roddy Piper. This is 1999. So, I mean, he was in his end of his career, not in his career, but, you know, it's later in his career. I mean, what were your thoughts on Scott Hall? I mean, at this time, he was still on the juice, you know, literally, and doing all the pills, I'm sure. He wasn't probably in the best place in the world, but he had a good match. I mean, what were your thoughts on this?
Go ahead, Tyler.
I think, you know, what Rowdy, you know, the Rowdy one, Piper, he was great. I mean, sure, he was past his prime, but he still was Piper. I mean, that's one thing I loved about him. He did the poke to the eyes like the Three Stooges. Some of the comedy spots that could work, he could get away with. And he really did legitimately box. And that's what I love. The commentators talked about his story, that he really, because he incorporated a lot of that in his offense, the jabs and the sleeper off the top rope. Just, he was outsmarting Scott Hall. And you know what, Scott Hall, to his credit, they seemed like they had chemistry. This was actually a fun match for what it was. You know,
I agree, and that's what you look at Piper, and he was never the. I don't want to say he didn't have the skill set, but he didn't do a lot of the moves that everybody else did. And you can look at his run in WWF, is that he was always a safe guy out there and did his basic moves, and he did the little trickster things, and you never really saw anybody get anything clean on him. And you can even go back and look at the matches with him and Hogan, is that Hogan never really got a clean finish on him at all. And the same thing here is, it took Scott Hall and Disco Inferno to beat him. And then even at the end, what's he do? He beats those guys up at the end. So Piper always seemed like he came off with some kind of a shine, even if he lost a match.
Yeah, I thought it was great. I mean, you spoke about it. That belt where Hall, he handed it to him, and Hall thought he was gonna get the cheap shot, and Piper was ready for it. I mean, and then it took Nash in the numbers game to beat him up. Then he got out of the ring. I mean, he was just going to stick it to you. I mean, whether it was part of the plan or not, Piper was Piper, and that's what people respected and loved about him. I agree. I think he was awesome. I just love that personality, Piper's Pit, all that stuff. It was great.
Yeah, man. I thought it was great too. I mean, but we're gonna take a brief second and gonna play a promo for a show of a buddy of mine. It's gonna be coming to Netflix and it's on his YouTube channel. But when we come back, we're gonna be talking Goldberg, Bam Bam Bigelow, and the main event, Hollywood Hogan, Ric Flair for the WCW title, and of course, we're gonna find out what Tyler picks for our next show. We'll be back in a second.
Remember all the fun and joy of your favorite game or childhood toy. If only you could feel that way again. Well, you don't have to go back in time, 'cause Nick and friends can help you find long lost treasures you once loved. Let's go hunting nostalgia.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great show called Hunting Nostalgia with my good friend Nick Bartley. You can find him online at Hunting Nostalgia on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. It's a show that's being picked up by Netflix whenever they can start recording again. But he's doing it all. It's a whole thing by himself. He goes out and finds classic stuff. I mean, he doesn't sell any of it. I
think my grandma had that monkey that he had at the end.
I mean, maybe he's going to want to come see your grandma, but
she's not around anymore.
Then that would be kind of hard. I apologize for that. But no, it's a great show. He's a great guy. He does great voices. He does a guy called Boris and oh my God, don't you love it when you have a brain fart? Anyway, but yes, go to Hunting Nostalgia on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. It's one of those shows that he likes to find classic wrestling stuff. Like he likes to find stuff like the Iron Sheik. I break your back, make you humble, Tyler, if you don't pick the better show for next weekend. Isn't that right, Mike? Yes.
Agreed.
He finds, nostalgic stuff. I mean, he finds pop culture stuff and everything, but yeah. But before we get to the next match, the next two matches, Mike, if people want to look at your custom figures and your work, I mean, it's amazing. I mean, you're posting stuff all the time on the LJN Collectibles page on Facebook and just on Facebook in general. How can the people find out and watch and look at some of your stuff?
I am on YouTube. All you have to do is search up Mike Styer, Styer, on YouTube, and my channel will appear. And I've got just dropped a video, I think, 2 days ago, and I've got a couple more coming up here on figures that I've done this week. I did a Gladiator Hulk Hogan from one of his WWF appearances. He had a big Roman Gladiator outfit on, and I made one of those up, and I've done some different repaints for some people because people are always looking to see what colors to use. And so I've run through and done a Billy Jack Haynes this week and a Coco Beware that'll be dropping pretty soon.
Oh, very cool.
And Tyler, I mean, where can people find your amazing writings?
Just at alleverythingentertainment.com. It's very kind of you again. I cover the daily wrestling news, so I guess I'm officially a dirt sheet. I didn't realize it. I wasn't trying to be, but that's the rap now. Even the guy from CCW was like, "Yeah, what do you expect from this dirt sheet?" The guy that headbutted me. So we're trying to get that angle going. Not really. It's not really heading steaming. So that's why I'm kind of teasing. It's just something we've done.
Yeah, I mean it's amazing. But the next match, Goldberg, Bam Bam Bigelow. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that Bam Bam Bigelow had a great strategy working Goldberg outside the ring and keeping him grounded. I mean, you think about it, they're two monster guys, and Bam Bam's athletic and fast, but there's something to be said about how Bam Bam was actually making it more of a match. It wasn't going to be a squash match, which was nice to see. And that's just my takeaways, because it didn't last long regardless. And I can't wait to hear your guys' opinions about it.
Mike?
It was about 12 minutes long, so it wasn't too bad. Again, I agree with Tyler that I think Bam Bam got more of a showing than a lot of guys normally did with Goldberg. And I think you couldn't squash Bam Bam. So they did the right thing and they let him get some offense in. But I mean, as Tyler said, you got to carry Goldberg because he is just a big old statue in there, just only thinking of his moves, and he's not going to sell for anybody. But I think Bam Bam looked pretty good in this for, comparatively to most of Goldberg's opponents. And I think he struggled with getting Bigelow up at times for some of his moves.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a big guy. I think, too, at least what Goldberg did with the two spears made sense in kicking him, because you wouldn't need to really beat this guy down to be able to get him up. I mean, so at least they did that. I will give them credit for that as part of the story, the way they laid out the match. So,
and I love Bam Bam. I wish that he would have gotten more of a run anywhere where he went, because he was, as agile of a big man as you could find.
I put him up there with Vader. To me, they're two of my favorite big guys, because they could do moonsaults and all this crazy stuff you don't see guys that size doing.
No, it's not. But we have the main event of the evening. It's for the WCW World Title. The legend Hulk Hogan, boo, taking on 20-time world champion Ric Flair. Your thoughts on this?
No, I would just say that these guys were taking it old school, though, with Hogan and Flair, because they got busted open. Flair, both guys were getting aggressive. And I guess the storyline was that Bischoff and Hogan took Flair out somewhere and beat him up. He was the storyline president. It was really, fascinating to look back during this era. But this was actually not a bad match. I mean, it was going to be Hogan style and Flair style, kind of, doing the matches they've done just in a different way. But for Hogan to get that much offense early on and then Rick kind of carried at the end, I think was generous, because most of the time we saw how Flair at least controls half the match. But that was, I guess, the respect, as far as this match between both two legends. And what happened at the end, I can't wait to get your guys' feedback on the match and in the events that transpired after that. It was some, some decent storytelling. I don't know. The stun gun kind of was too much during this time, though. I'll just give that away. Yeah.
I like the story.
Yeah.
Because here you had Flair, who's not being bought. He's a guy that's standing up for the company. Here come the new guys who think they're going to run everything. So, as a wrestling fan, I enjoy the story, because it's like, Flair standing up to these guys who are trying to ruin this company. Go get them, Flair. But then you watch the match and you're like, oh, these guys are not in their prime anymore, but still put on a pretty good match. And like you said, there was some color. They both were able to do their thing, but the stun gun thing was terrible. It was, wow.
They were trying, yeah.
It took two to take him down.
It did, and that's what was crazy. You could tell, because WWE was doing the same thing, where wrestling's always kind of was starting to get soap opera-ish, but they were really trying to push that now. But I will say it did give us Torrie Wilson, so there's a plus. There is a plus there. Yeah.
You know what the plus is? What show are you picking for next week?
Well, I hope you guys don't mind this, but I've been listening to podcasts, and what got me motivated is I want to go watch SummerSlam 96, because speaking of Vader, it's that infamous incident between him and Michaels where he missed the spots, and that's where, whether his fault or not. So, and there was some good stuff. Cornette was still during his run there, so, and Jose Lothario. So I thought I'd go WWF this time and just change it up. I know it's SummerSlam. I don't really follow the holidays, kind of the seasonal pay-per-views, but I figured I'd change it up. So I got to admit, if it's not a good show, I'll take the blame. But if nothing else, that match between Michaels and Vader.
Hey, we're back to Gund Arena again in Cleveland.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. I'm trying to get on Mike's good side, go somewhere in Ohio again, because he did Invasion, and that seemed to be the big venue, which was a great building. You know, not that I would know. I've not been there. I'm just from the pay-per-views. I'm just kidding.
Oh, man. For the great Tyler Peters, as always, I am David Fine. We will see you next week. And of course, as always, we will talk to you in the past.
238 pounds in the black corner. From St. Louis,
Andre the Giant.
Gonna get his legs in on the loser.
Number one, the greatest WWE champion of all time, and in many ways, the man who made the title what it is today, Bruno Sammartino.
his opponent weighing 236 pounds in the white corner. From Van Nuys, California.